Good evening, I'm David Brown, and welcome to the Season 3 premiere of the Northern Sun Experience. We're on a new night at a new time, but still committed to giving you the most comprehensive coverage of the best D2 conference in America. It is Thursday night, and for the majority of NSIC football teams, it's opening night. We'll take a look at the schedule in a bit, but first, a preview of sorts heading into the 2016 season. We start, of course, with the Minnesota State Mavericks in Mankato. They won yet another NSIC championship, the team's third in the last 4 seasons, finishing with a 10-1 mark. But their playoff journey ended quickly in a wild 51-49 shootout loss at home to Emporia State. That came on the heels of a 2014 season, which saw MSU make a run all the way to the national championship game. The Mavs returned both quarterbacks in their dual QB system, seniors Nick Piericini and Ricky Lloyd, as well as their top 2 receivers in Ty Dennis and Brent Esser. But the rest of the offense has some question marks. They lost top pass catcher tight end Bryce Duncan, as well as all-time leading rusher Connor Thomas. In fact, Piericini will start at running back and not quarterback for the Mavs on Thursday because of injuries in camp. However, the defense should be good once again with the South Division's preseason Defensive Player of the Year in linebacker Marcus Gooden. But the line will have to make up for the absence of graduate Josh Gordon, who had 31.5 sacks for the Maverick defensive line in his final 2 seasons. The top returning team from the North Division is Minnesota Duluth, although the Bulldogs by their standards are coming off a subpar season. Despite an 8-3 regular season mark for the first time since 2008, UMD did not make the Division II playoffs. As the top NSIC team to not make the postseason, the Bulldogs did get an invitation along with a win in the annual Mineral Water Bowl. But UMD will be back among the playoff favorites in 2016. Quarterback Drew Bauer, who missed some time last year with an injury, will return for his senior season, and his presence will be key. Despite only playing in 9 games in 2015, Bauer was UMD's leading passer and leading rusher. Bo Bofferting and Nate Ricci are back at receiver, along with running backs Jemiah Newell and Darren Walker. Defensively, the team is spearheaded by Carl Finkel, who led UMD in both tackles for loss and sacks. The Bulldogs will certainly be motivated heading into 2016. And heading back south, the University of Sioux Falls came closest to advancing in the postseason last year, falling in the first round to Henderson State. But the Cougs are coming off a 9-2 regular season and return a lot of key components on offense. Quarterback Luke Papillion may be the NSIC's biggest dual threat, leading the conference's quarterbacks in rushing while passing for more than 3,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. Running backs Max Mickey and Justin Foltz are in the mix, along with Papillion's top 2 receivers last season in Brady Rose and Josh Angulo. The key for the Cougars may be in the secondary. USF loses Solomon St. Pierre, who led the conference last season with 9 interceptions, along with John Tidwell, who's currently in training camp with the Denver Broncos. The defensive line will need to step up even more than they did last season when the Cougs led the conference with 39 sacks. But the team that may be on the rise the most in the conference is Augustana. The Vikings are coming off just their second 9-win season in school history, as well as a return to the playoffs for the first time since 2010. And Augie will rely on a high-powered offense to propel them to new heights in 2016. The 2015 NSIC Player of the Year is also the 2016 Preseason Player of the Year. Augustana quarterback Trey Hyde enters his senior season determined to lead the Vikings even further.
It's kind of like a train. It's like if you're not with this thing, then get off. I mean, I think people kind of know that. You don't really got to be on people too much.
The dual threat QB may need to rely on his legs a little more this season, thanks to the loss of senior running back CJ Ham. But he knows he'll have 2 security blankets in receivers Charlie Hayes and Matt Heller. Lakeville, Minnesota natives he's known since childhood.
I've known Matt since I was 4. I've known Charlie since about 5. We really didn't plan on coming here together. It just kind of happened. And the opportunity to play with these guys for 4 years is something I never thought was going to happen.
Those 2 are my brothers, pretty much. Knowing each other since kindergarten, playing backyard football forever. There's times out here on the field where it feels the same way.
I know when Trey's looking at Charlie, I know when he's looking at me, I know when I have to win, and I just rely on Trey able to throw me across the middle. I know it's going to be safe.
Augustana's 3-headed monster should cause plenty of defensive nightmares in the conference. But the trio knows they have to maintain their offensive momentum in order to make a playoff run.
Just the overall swagger of the whole offense. I think we know we have high expectations, and we're all working towards it, and we're not going to let people sway from that line.
Everybody kind of has the same swagger about them, thinking that we expect to win and expect to be really, really tough.
Well, Augustana certainly getting some love in the NSIC preseason poll. The Vikings are ranked number 2 overall in the conference, despite not getting any first-place votes. Once again, Minnesota State is top dog with 11 first-place votes. Minnesota Duluth is 3rd overall with 1 first-place vote. Sioux Falls is 4th with 2 first-place votes, while Bemidji State, who tied for the North Division title last season, is another team on the rise. The Beavers come in at 5th overall. Northern State is 6th with 1 first-place vote, while Southwest Minnesota State is 7th, also with a first-place vote. Winona State rounds out the top half of the poll. Remember, the Warriors handed Minnesota State its only conference loss last season, despite a sub-500 record. On the other side, St. Cloud State is 9th and Minnesota State Moorhead is 10th. Upper Iowa, Wayne State, and Concordia St. Paul follow as 11, 12, and 13 out of the South Division. Minot State, UMary, and Minnesota Crookston come in at 14th, 15th, and 16th, respectively. We'll see how accurate those polls are once we get to the end of the season, but for right now, the games begin on Thursday night with 12 of the 16 NSIC teams in action. Remember, the first 4 weeks are inter-division contests between the North and South. Among the 6 p.m. starts are Wayne State at MSU Moorhead, Minnesota State at Minot State, Minnesota Crookston at Winona State, Upper Iowa at Bemidji State, and Sioux Falls at St. Cloud State. The lone 7 o'clock game on Thursday pits Minnesota Duluth against Southwest Minnesota State. And then on Saturday, the final 4 NSIC teams start the season. The University of Mary visits Concordia St. Paul at 6 p.m., but before that, it's Northern State at Augustana. Midco Sports Network is proud to present that game to you live on September 3rd at 1 o'clock from Kirkby Over Stadium. Well, when we come back on the Northern Sun Experience, we'll switch our attention to volleyball, where some of the top coaches in the NSIC discuss the competitive nature of the conference.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience. It's hard to find any conference, let alone one in Division II, with as much cutthroat competition as NSIC volleyball. With only so many teams allowed from one conference in the postseason, Northern State and Minnesota Duluth were on the outside looking in last season, despite being top 10 teams in the coaches poll. Nevertheless, it should be another fun year with plenty of depth to go around. Taking a look at the preseason poll, and once again, a familiar face is at the top. Concordia St. Paul received 13 of the 16 first-place votes, notching the top spot in the preseason poll for the 13th consecutive year. Southwest Minnesota State is second in the poll with 1 first-place vote. Minnesota Duluth and Winona State are 3rd and 4th, respectively, while last year's national semifinalist Wayne State is in 5th place with 2 first-place votes. Augustana, Northern State, and Minnesota State round out the top half. Sioux Falls is 9th, followed by MSU Moorhead and Upper Iowa. UMary and St. Cloud State are tied for 12th, followed by Minnesota Crookston, Minot State, and Bemidji State. Meanwhile, the national coaches poll underscores the reality of NSIC volleyball. It's going to be a battle every single night. As cliche as it sounds, polls are simply numbers to volleyball coaches. The numbers that truly matter happen on the court. But it still felt odd when Northern State and Minnesota Duluth, 2 NSIC teams in the top 10 of the AVCA coaches poll last season, were left out of the playoffs.
It'll be every bit as good as it was last year, and there's going to be 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever people that teams that are going to be highly disappointed again.
Ultimately, it was just the disappointment for those outgoing seniors and them not being able to cap off their career the way they certainly wanted to at the beginning of the year, and just being disappointed for them, but it certainly serves as incentive for the group this year to try to get back to work.
And the work begins this weekend on what should be another long and grueling season. Concordia St. Paul is ranked number 1 again in both the conference and national polls, but the shine on the Golden Bears has come off a little bit, but that's only based on the lofty standards of their predecessors. CSP won 7 straight national championships from 2007 to 2013, but they've fallen in the Central region each of the last 2 seasons.
It's just been a couple of years where we haven't necessarily played that great in some big matches. I mean, I think that, and then I think that other teams are doing a great job in our region. It's a tough region to get out of, and it's one of those things that other teams have just beat us on those given nights. It's just one of those things of trying to get over that hump of being able to play well in those big matches and those big moments.
The two teams that have knocked the Golden Bears out of the playoffs the past 2 seasons, ironically enough, are from within the NSIC. 2 years ago, it was Southwest Minnesota State, who made a run all the way to the national championship game. In 2015, the Mustangs showed just how difficult it was to get back, falling in the Central Region semifinals to Wayne State.
It's something you can't take for granted at all, and just because it happened last year, or we got to the region last year, doesn't mean it's a gimme by any means this year. It's gotten deeper and better with all of the teams because you just have to if you want to survive.
The Wayne State team that knocked the Mustangs out of the Central Region also topped Concordia St. Paul in the region championship on the Golden Bears' home court. The Wildcats made it all the way to the national semifinals, and the players and coaches are motivated after their Cinderella run.
I think a lot of people like to see the underdog win sometimes. So when you go in as a 7th seed, even though you know your team's capable of doing great things, you have to prove it, and that's what that team did. It was a huge step for our program and pretty exciting as well.
But based on the luck of their fellow NSIC counterparts the past few seasons, Wayne State is well aware it'll take a tremendous effort to get back.
We feel like, we just got off the best roller coaster in the world, and we want to go right again. And unfortunately, we're getting on a roller coaster, but we don't know if it's going to be that same ride.
The best season in Wildcat history in 2015 was also the best season in Winona State history. The Warriors fell in the conference tournament championship last season, and they didn't even make the Central Region tournament. A prime example of how every game will be a new battle.
The philosophy we came here with is you're going to play the best there is in Division II within our own conference, night in and night out. And with that mentality, you have to bring it every single game.
No one knows that mentality more than Northern State, who won 21 in a row to start the 2015 season, ended the year 25-4, yet still found themselves watching the NCAA tournament from home.
My pitch to every recruit is this: if you're going to play Division II volleyball, this is the best conference, hands down, in the nation, and it continues to be.
Minnesota Duluth was number 1 in the coaches poll last season for multiple weeks. But just like Northern, the Bulldogs had some ups and downs that cost them late in the year.
It's going to be pretty tough for teams to go through a conference schedule in the NSIC without taking some dings along the way. So you can't put that much pressure on yourself thinking they're all must-win games, but you certainly know you got to win your fair share.
Once postseason tournaments roll around, there will inevitably be even more controversy and more consternation within the NSIC. But the bottom line is, for most teams, that's what makes the league. Knowing the competition will bring out the best in everyone.
You are going to see the best volleyball in all of Division II in this league, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes recruits want to come and play in this league, and they understand that it's better than a lot of Division I leagues.
So here's a look at the AVCA poll. Concordia St. Paul is number 1, followed by Southwest Minnesota State at number 4, and Wayne State at number 6. Minnesota Duluth is 10th, Northern State is 17th, and Winona State is 21st, while Augustana is receiving votes. It should be another fun season with the best teams in the country. When we come back, we go from the court to the pitch and preview the NSIC soccer season. Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience, and now we switch to our closest preseason poll in soccer, where the top 2 teams were separated by a mere 2 points. And eking out the top spot this season is Augustana, with 215 total points and 8 first-place votes, followed very closely by Minnesota State with 213 total points and 7 first-place votes. It's the Vikings' first preseason number 1 ranking since joining the NSIC, and it's the first time since the year 2000 that Minnesota State or Winona State has not been ranked number 1 heading into the season. The Warriors come in 3rd with 1 first-place vote, while Minot State rounds out last year's playoff teams as they stand in 4th place. Bemidji State, St. Cloud State, Minnesota Duluth, and Concordia St. Paul are ranked 5 through 8. Northern State, Upper Iowa, Wayne State, and U Mary are 9th through 12th respectively. And the bottom portion of the polls include Minnesota Crookston, Southwest Minnesota State, MSU Moorhead, and Sioux Falls. But for Augustana, the #1 preseason team and winners of last year's conference tournament, their focus is simply on getting better.
We got a little phrase that we've been using as far as coming together is the beginning, working together is progress, and so, and then at the end of the day, staying together is success. So that's kind of where we're at right now, is we're kind of working together to see if we continue to progress.
When we come back, the life and legacy of former Northern State basketball coach Don Meyer is coming to the big screen. Hear from the director and producer of the new movie My Many Sons next. Welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience. When he retired in 2010, Northern State men's basketball coach Don Meyer had the most wins in college basketball history. It was especially inspiring after what the coach had been through just 2 years prior, when a car accident took part of his leg and a subsequent hospital stay revealed cancer. And while Coach Meyer passed away from his battle in May of 2014, his legacy will live on in a brand new movie. If this face looks familiar, you're probably a fan of Beverly Hills Cop. Yes, that's actor Judge Reinhold playing the role of former Northern State basketball coach Don Meyer in a new movie called My Many Sons.
Baseline! We just started putting the cast together, and we thought of Judge as an interesting choice because he is so well known for his comedy.
So after reading the script, he read the script, we had long discussions with him, and we arrived at the conclusion that yes, he would be a great addition to the project.
We thought he had sort of the voice and the grit to pull it off, and he just really resonated toward the script, and so conversations just continued, and he ended up wanting to play the role.
He was very excited about portraying someone like Coach Meyer, who was so influential, so important, and dealing with young kids, and so he was looking forward to being able to do something like that.
The film project was spearheaded by Casey Bond, a former college baseball player and current actor-producer from Lipscomb University in Nashville, Tennessee, where Don Meyer had his greatest coaching successes in the 80s and 90s. Both Bond and director Ralph Portillo were in constant contact with the Meyer family as things moved along.
I learned that it's a big responsibility to bring to life someone's life story. It's very challenging. It's not a work of fiction, so you feel a lot of responsibility working with everybody.
Unfortunately for cast and crew, Coach Meyer passed just weeks before filming started, but it only served as inspiration to tell his story the right way.
I wanted nothing more for him to be able to be there, be on set. I think he would have gotten a kick out of it, seeing these different actors playing the different players that he had coached, and so that was difficult. But at the same time, we were happy we were able to tell him before he passed away, this is happening.
Filming took place over the course of 20 days in the summer of 2014, with the majority of production around Lipscomb University in Nashville.
We actually filmed in the coach's real office at the university. We filmed at his real house where Coach Meyer and his family lived. We were able to find the house, talk to the present owners. They allowed us to film there.
But for moviegoers around Northern State, they will be able to see some recognizable parts of Aberdeen.
We spent some days there doing background shots of the area for the opening of the film and for when he has his accident, etc. And also we shot at Northern State University for establishing shots.
The title of the movie, My Many Sons, comes from Meyer's unique bond with his players. But ultimately, those in charge of the film want to show Don Meyer was more than just a basketball coach.
I just want this film to impact people in a positive way. We're out to make inspirational films that are going to impact people that we'll never meet in this lifetime.
Just some fun facts about the movie. Judge Reinhold actually shaved his head for the role. He is not wearing a bald cap. Meyer's family was able to see an advanced screening of the film and were consulted throughout the process. And according to Bond and Portillo, the main reason it took so long for a wide release is because of post-production and finding the proper distributor. My Many Sons will be available on DVD on October 4th. When we come back, some updates on former NSIC stars trying to forge a path in the NFL.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back. In addition to Thursday night being the start of the NSIC season, it's the fourth and final game of the NFL preseason. And for several former NSIC stars, it's their last chance to prove they belong on a roster. Among the 6 former NSIC players currently on an NFL roster, half of them are with the Minnesota Vikings. That includes former Augustana Viking C.J. Ham. He ran for a touchdown in the team's first preseason game against Cincinnati and has remained consistent in his playing time. Of course, former Minnesota State wide receiver Adam Thielen has improved his standing in each of his 4 seasons with the Vikes and should make the team once again. Former Concordia St. Paul defensive end Zach Moore is also fighting for a roster spot in Minnesota. Other NSIC athletes in camps include former Minnesota State offensive lineman Chris Reed with the Jacksonville Jaguars, former St. Cloud State quarterback Jordan Safan with the Atlanta Falcons, and someone I mentioned earlier, former Sioux Falls cornerback John Tidwell with the Denver Broncos. Good luck to all 6 players as the NFL teams make their final cuts this upcoming weekend. And once again, a thank you to all NSIC member schools for their time and contributions. Enjoy the season, everyone. We'll be back next week right here for yet another Northern Sun Experience.